Even as global energy supply chains face mounting pressure, India's GDP growth is holding between a resilient 7 and 7.4%. This makes it the fastest-growing major economy on the planet. A new trade deal with the U.S. recently slashed reciprocal tariffs, helping fuel an 8% increase in the domestic manufacturing sector. This momentum is accelerated by rapid digital integration. Frictionless payment systems have reached the street level, allowing informal vendors to process transactions in fractions of a second. These metrics suggest a unified economic powerhouse, but they primarily describe the progress of the urban tech hubs while ignoring the reality for those living outside the digital perimeter. The signs of investment are undeniable. New skyscrapers are rising, and highway capital expenditure has reached historic levels. However, steps away from those highways, the rural baseline remains stagnant. Strained infrastructure forces millions of young people to migrate to cities, moving out of desperate need for stable work rather than choice of opportunity. The nation is currently running at two very separate speeds. One engine is a sleek electric bullet train, while the other is a tractor struggling across a bumpy farm. When the national economy relies on a rural workforce that is migrating out of desperation, it creates a systemic imbalance that limits the country's total productive capacity. Comparing the rising trajectory of national tech revenues against the growing deficits of regional state budgets, the center booms while local exchequers run largely on borrowed money. Breaking down state cash in hand, salaries, pensions, and interest payments consume 2/3 of the total volume. This lack of available capital creates a cycle where states cannot build the very infrastructure needed to generate formal local employment. India is growing fast, but it is a double-engine growth, where the bottom engine is effectively starved of fuel. This divergence between the digital boom and the rural struggle maps directly onto the ballot box, where political outcomes differ wildly between the national and state levels. At the national level, the ruling coalition maintains a firm grip, promising stability and global trade dominance, anchored by the Viksit Bharat initiative. But in regional assemblies, the map is bitterly contested. National parties are fighting for every vote in eastern strongholds that were once considered untouchable. In the south, the disruption is even more pronounced. Upstart parties led by charismatic figures are dismantling political duopolies that have held power for decades. The Indian voter has delivered a split-ticket mandate. They reward superpower ambitions at the center, but they ruthlessly punish local leaders for the fiscal and welfare realities of daily life. Because regional elections are so fiercely competitive, local leaders often operate in a state of constant survival, fighting for every percentage point. This flowchart shows how the pressure to win leads to short-term welfare handouts. These payouts drain the capital investment funds required for long-term growth, which eventually leads back to more electoral pressure. Relying on emotional rhetoric to secure votes actively delays the deep, unglamorous structural reforms required to fix the rural economy. Winning an election through these short-term fixes is often at odds with the fiscal health required for a state's long-term development. Ensuring wealth reaches the bottom of the pyramid requires moving beyond campaign rhetoric toward rigorous governance. State budgets must be restructured to heal fiscal deficits, pivoting away from operational debt to focus on rural capital investments. Leaders must prioritize the creation of formal jobs to stop the wave of desperate rural migration, while addressing the urban pollution that currently degrades the country's most productive cities. Realizing the nation's superpower potential requires shifting focus from the glowing numbers on a digital screen to the difficult, long-term work of ensuring that wealth actually takes root in the soil.